Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Mike Flanagan's Doctor Sleep. So yes, here we are. Very interesting here. A recent review, recent release review here from me. Something, as we know, I don't usually do. I've not really seen too many films at all this year, to be honest. But this is one of them. I didn't, actually plan on seeing this really until a few days ago, and I saw this yesterday, which was Tuesday, the 19th, of course. And yeah, this is a week I've got off, I've got it free, so I thought, why not, go and see this. Something that I was kind of curious about. I wouldn't say I was really, really hyped for. Maybe if it was different circumstances, maybe a different director that I was aware of, and stuff. Mike Flanagan, it's not yet. This whole project did not really get me truly hyped. Just being honest. But yeah, spoilers alert here. Just before I forget to say that, will be spoilers. So definitely watch the film first if you don't want to be spoiled. Of any of the plot details, certain things going on in this. But yes, this is a film, of course, that is is a very, very recent novel, of course, by King, 2013. So very, very recent here. The Shining, of course, 1977 that was released, published, of course, and then the film by Stanley Kubrick, 1980 that was released. So many years ahead here, Doctor Sleep, and I've not read the book or anything, but yeah, this was pitched as basically a kind of working off of the film and the book. So very interesting, very I guess challenging, of course. And yes, this is a film that's kind of set many years ahead, of course. Ewan McGregor plays Danny, of course. Danny Torrance, but usually kind of referred to as Dan in the film. That's kind of what he goes by in the film, and very interesting film. This, of course, it's been met with positive, response mostly. Something that I think, it's pretty well well received, but not anything kind of people are really saying is a great piece of work generally. But yeah, I thought, who knows what this film will be like? Just kind of give it a go. And what I had to do was separate. I just had to do it, separate the Shining film. From this, I couldn't go in thinking that this is going to be, to kind of think about the Shining film at all. The Kubrick version, of course, really going into this, but I kind of was thinking, let's go in with the kind of just being aware of the general story here, the overall, the characters and stuff, just bare bones, as in from the novel form, and just kind of going with that and see where this takes us. Because going in, kind of with any thoughts really of the film, the Kubrick version, it's just going to make this really disappointing, I thought, and just kind of it would just kind of ruin things maybe. For this experience, not that a film could ever, kind of, or a sequel. I don't kind of let it kind of affect the original, my view of that, in terms of if it messes things up, like with Star Wars or stuff. I don't do that, but I thought just to be fair on this film, let's kind of go in with the back of the mind, further away, the Kubrick version, because for me, that is, and for many people, one of the finest films ever made. But this film, unfortunately, it kind of does. It doesn't make that really completely possible, because it does actually do things, kind of where it shows, for example. Well, I mean, it shows Jack Torrance, which was a real flaw for me, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I think in the end, it's a good film, a good horror film. It's a good fantasy film, I think. Dark fantasy, thriller, horror film. Actually, it is an interesting film. I was definitely, it's a compelling film, mostly. In some regard, there's moments that are just, they are flat and they are not that interesting really, and it could have been better, but I think mostly I kind of liked the film. I'd say I really liked some aspects of the film, but overall, it's a good film that I liked, and I think I did have issues with the film, no doubt, even, kind of separating the Kubrick version of The Shining from this, but we'll get to the kind of the things they do later on in the film with that. But yeah, mainly it's kind of many years ahead, and the bulk of the film is set in 2011, meant to be. Ewan McGregor, the character of Danny, or Dan, whatever you want to call him, has been drifting around, an alcoholic, so it's kind of going in that route. I've not read the novel of Doctor Sleep at all, but of course I know people that have read that, and they're saying it's kind of, it's interesting what they've done with that, and how they kind of, it shows, of course, Danny many years ahead, and see what happened to him, which you know, it's kind of to explain whether I wanted to see that or not. You know, we'll kind of. I don't really know at this stage. I think it's too soon to say. You know, I think, you know, I've seen The Shining many, many times, and I kind of like to I like to make, you know, kind of ideas in my head about that, and maybe not. I would be fine basically if I never saw a film or read a book about what actually happened to Danny, and maybe just let it, you know, kind of sit in my mind and see, you know, maybe he went off and done this, but you know, this film actually does tackle that, and of course, Ewan McGregor is a great actor. You know, he really, really is, especially in films like Trainspotting. Legendary actor. In this film, you know, as usual, he doesn't really give a bad performance. I think this is a good performance at times, really good, very likable. I think what they're doing with Danny in this is kind of you know, showing how he hasn't escaped really his past. He's kind of just using alcohol to suppress the memories, and he's still traumatized and stuff by different ghosts and everything from the hotel and different memories. I kind of liked it at times what they were doing. Other times I wasn't, you know, a massive fan. I think, and what they're doing in this film, you know, I don't believe a lot of it. You know, with the way that kind of Danny turns out, I don't think Danny really would have been that. You know, I think he was definitely a really unique character in the film and stuff. And I can't really say that this is, you know, what they're doing with Danny in this film is really unique. It just isn't, and that's just something that I feel personally. I don't think it really follows through completely with the character, you know, let alone the kind of performance. You know, at first I can kind of see, yeah, they've done a decent job, but you know, of course they flash ahead, you know, kind of go ahead 8 years later at one point, and you know, then basically that's when he's kind of even more of a normal guy, and it just, you know, it was kind of weird. It's very hard to explain. I think everyone will feel differently about that. I just don't quite feel it was really completely true to the character. Just my thoughts on that, and it just, you know, I certainly, you know, I didn't feel this was in the same universe, which is fine. I separated them, and you know what they've done in this film. You know, it's quite a, you know, quite a film. You know, there's a lot in this. You know, it's quite a big scope. They show early scenes as well. They show, of course, Danny as a kid, kind of just, I think, rushing through a little bit at the first 10 minutes or so, and actually 20-25 minutes is still going to a point where it is even jumping ahead, you know, to Ewan McGregor, you know, seeing him, it is still a bit rushed, I feel. You know, you see Dick Halloran as well at first and stuff like that, and I think that was decent the way they've done that. It was quite good, but again, you know, it's not, you know, that warm, you know, again, compared to, you know, because when they show scenes, you know, basically redoing scenes as well, especially later on in the film, you know, from the original Shining film, and of course, Dick Halloran, you see him in this film at first, talking to Danny, and it's just, you know, just seeing the comparison, really, I can't help it. The warmth and the atmosphere is nothing really in comparison. But what I did, you know, in itself, I think Dick Halloran was good in the film when he was there. You know, whichever kind of form, whatever you want to kind of say about that. Of course, there is different things they're doing with this. I'm not going to get into specifically with the kind of way that you know, that character is portrayed. But yeah, it's basically it's fine. It's kind of, you know, it's enjoyable. And I think, of course, Wendy in this film, actually, you know, the performance from the actress that played her in this film, I think, you know, it's definitely to praise. We'll get to Jack Torrance, what they've done with him. Would you believe he shows up in the film? I didn't actually think really that they would do that, but they did, which is one of the most interesting parts really about the film. We'll get to that, but yeah, I think Wendy, the way they've done Dick Halloran as well, and Danny at first, it's not comparable. It's nothing special. It's competent, I'd say. That's at best. And what I did really like about the film, especially, is the cult. You know, in this they're called, well, they're basically this vampire-esque kind of group, this cult, and basically, yeah, the True Knots they're referred to in the film, and of course, Rose the Hat is basically the leader of this group, and yeah, in a nutshell, they are vampires. They just kind of do, there's different methods of kind of absorbing the power and stuff, and how they feed, perhaps. It's kind of, you know, it's just a different kind of take on vampires and stuff, and I think, you know, it's quite enjoyable, actually, and the kind of fantasy elements of the film, actually, you know, is mostly my favourite stuff here, and also the team up. You know, there's a character called Abra. Basically, when you jump ahead, she's kind of she basically eventually teams up, as we know, with Danny, McGregor, of course, and they do eventually travel to the Overlook Hotel. But I think the whole team up of this is something I really enjoyed, and that's, you know, these sort of things I'm praising. You know, the reason I think it's a good film and not less, you know, despite my flaws, because it is very enjoyable at times. With this, I think she was a really good character, Abra. Really, really good character, really good performance. Very, very impressive stuff with that. And of course, the character of Rose, I think is a really, really good character, despite the whole group, the cult. Unfortunately, mostly being very one-sided. You know, kind of missed opportunities to kind of how they set it up, the mystery there, and the overall kind of what they were kind of maybe going for a little bit, starting to kind of, you know, exposition of this group, I think kind of got lost a little bit. But overall, I think Rose, a very good character. Rebecca Ferguson, yes, very, very good in this film. One of the things that really kept it alive, actually, the performance, you know, you could say it's great, actually. Just so good. You know, she is, of course, a great actress, and yet another great performance from her, you know, really. And the character, you know, it's certainly one-sided, maybe less so than the other kind of members of this cult, the True Knot, but certainly, you know, a compelling character, and you know, one that really, I think the performance is definitely to praise, massively at times, and just very, of what they gave her, I think very, very compelling, and just consistent. Definitely very enjoyable villain. Of course, one-sided villain, but yeah, very enjoyable. You know, I think the kind of the whole, as I'm saying, the whole fantasy elements of this, and the whole kind of the way the cult is portrayed, generally is one of the things that's positive about the film. It's got this surface level of enjoyability at times, mostly throughout, but the actual, you know, there's definitely a lack of subtlety in my opinion. There's just, you know, even in the way the film is shot, and you know, you kind of have to when they keep showing scenes of the original and stuff, and playing around with that, I think, you know, the Kubrick version of that, of The Shining, of course, you know, just the mastery, of course, of every element, but the subtleties, you know, and how the atmosphere, everything, it was so believable, you know, and so, yes, just so rich, and you know, it kept you wondering about things, didn't reveal too much. This film, it kind of just goes all in, and that's fine, but you know, it does lead to some you know, elements that are just too on the nose, too heavy-handed, and just really lack the subtlety. We'll get to the final act within the Overlook Hotel very soon. Very much ties into that lack of subtlety. But yes, I think the cult, you know, again, enjoyable times, very enjoyable, you know, in some instances, but very definitely not subtle at all, and just lacked the richness that I think could have been here, potentially. But yes, what the film done, of course, in the second half, was, of course, this team up, and of course, really going against this cult, and of course, eventually we get to the Overlook Hotel, and this is stuff that, you know, I've heard has been met, of course, with very, very mixed reception, and you know, of course, you know, very understandable why, because this is when it really goes into the, you know, it really does play around with the original film in particular as well, and what we have is of course, years later, the Overlook Hotel, and of course, Danny and Abra go into the Overlook Hotel, of course, being followed by Rose, just on her own, really, and yes, you know, of course, because Abra and Danny have got these powers, the Shining, Rose, of course, as we know, is after them to kind of consume this power, and that's why they're kind of, she's after them in the film, and only really as well, I think what I liked actually is when one of the things about the final act is when she finally realises how kind of powerful Danny is, and that's really good. I think kind of the really the true meeting of these two, the main villain perhaps, and the main, you know, protagonist, you could say, right at the end of the film, which is really good. You know, it's kind of left it until then, but really, what they do here, I was kind of thinking, are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? It'd be really, really cool. But they do many different things here. I'm really conflicted about this. At times, it's more entertaining than quite a lot of the film until this, but other times, I really didn't like the way they kind of played around with the original. Basically, as we know, all the characters pretty much show up. They're all there, and of course, just the moment when Danny kind of threw her into it, threw Rose into all these ghosts, and they kind of started feeding off of her, all kind of going on top of her, and kind of, it's all kind of all in this kind of scene here, this sequence, as we know, and of course, basically, yeah, she gets defeated by them. I wasn't a fan of that, I think. Yes, it just really completely changed everything there, in terms of it was completely different, the subtleties there and the way that these characters acted, and just seeing them all recast, at times it just made me think, really, was there any point in that? And I think the thing that I cannot deny is how unnecessary and quite irritating to show particular scenes basically redone from the original, Danny Boy and all this, Of course, Jack Torrance recast really interestingly, Henry Thomas actually playing, Jack Torrance there, which is really interesting to see. But what they're doing with him and showing him, his actual face, and there's another prolonged scene which we'll get to in a minute at the bar. But what they're doing when they show him chasing, them scenes, the axe scene, from the original reshot, particular bit. Not the Here's Johnny line, but of course, the axe going through the door and Wendy screaming. No, absolutely not for me. That's a big no, and I just think I could not imagine, with all respect, sitting in a room and saying, let's do this. Why? Really, why would they do this? Reshoot this scene. One of the famous scenes in cinema, and I just think, why redo it? It really annoyed me at times, actually, with respect. I think it did irritate me. It just made me think, why did they do that? Why did they show this again? That's a big no. What would have been great if we never saw at all, Jack Torrance, because he does actually appear as well. Basically, a kind of a mixing of the character of him and Lloyd, and that didn't really make too much sense. And also, it was a dragged out scene, and I did not like seeing him at the bar, that scene at all. Big no for me as well. What would have been great is just, yes, they can show the other characters, but especially do not show, I think, for me personally, Jack Nicholson's, kind of Jack Torrance. It just is a big no for me, and I think as well, because of the whole kind of the way, this, of course, Mike Flanagan is kind of playing off of all kind of interpretations here, and that's just kind of really, I think, unnecessary as well, particularly relating to the maze and just the whole way that the film ended, and even the book, I just think it's kind of, it just isn't, I think, necessary to kind of portray Jack Torrance in this way. I think would have been great, would have not seeing him at all, and that's the only character. If that's the only character you're not seeing return, then that kind of just keeps the mystery. It keeps the kind of he is, the kind of standout, of course, of the film, The Shining, and just leave Jack Torrance alone, kind of thing. And I think that would have been really cool. It would have just been, I think, a good note to end it on. And unfortunately, he does show up a couple of times, and just seeing these scenes reshot. I think even just showing Danny, going through, of course, through the hallways, riding through, redoing these scenes, and actually showing, an actual close-up as well, a different actor. It just doesn't work for me. I just think I have problems with that, and it just, personally, I just don't think it was really needed, and it certainly didn't go down well, with what they were doing with Jack Torrance in the film, and just, as I say, showing the axe scene, or at least part of it, basically redone, was certainly a big no for me, and that's not, disrespect. I just really didn't take to that kind of way they were doing that. I just, I just thought, no more could we go. We could not be any less subtle and, less kind of, I think, so just a lack of control with that, and I think, fair enough, the director wanted to tribute that, maybe, that could have been the case, kind of the team behind this, but really, I think it should have been left out. Just see, the scene. The whole kind of sequence ends. The axe scene is literally maybe the most iconic scene in horror. That's probably quite accurate. I think, and just to see this again, it's just pointless. I'm not going to dwell on that, but really kind of, it didn't work for me, and I think there was certainly less atmosphere here in the final act. I loved seeing the Overlook Hotel from the outside and just what they were potentially going to do with this, and at times it was entertaining, you know, a bit more so than what it'd been, but again, it was a mixed bag of just, you know, it really annoyed me and kind of done stuff that was unnecessary. You know, I didn't know what was the point, you know, very just, you know, what they were doing, ambiguous nature here, and kind of also going all in. It just really was a mixture of different things that didn't work for me at times, and seeing all these characters just, you know, what in the original film, let's just quickly compare that, is the way that the characters in that, the ghosts, were literally like a part of the hotel, and you know, they were static, they were cold, you know, kind of on the surface, and just, I think there's something about that. It's kind of like they are, you know, literally like a kind of human statues in many regards, in the way they don't really move around too much, and have them chasing and then clambering onto, you know, of course, Rose the Hat. Just in that way, it was also very heavy-handed, and it took away, you know, potentially what could have been, you know, particularly for this film then, you know, kind of just singularly, you know, just for this film, the atmosphere, the control, and the overall tone of it, you know, just kind of went too far. It was a bit too over the top, really, for my liking on this occasion, and just losing any sense really of atmosphere and yeah, just subtlety at all. You know, keeping up the kind of the way this is really disturbing. You know, just this whole hotel, and then of course it burns down. Maybe I didn't really know how to react to that either. But the actual ending, you know, seeing of course Abra communicating with Danny, you know, something that I did like, and I kind of liked the message actually. That it's quite nice. You know, I must admit that. But yes, the final act is very, very problematic for me, and just something that, you know, I really didn't think they would do that. You know, kind of thing at times, and I think just maybe one of the most wow, I didn't know that would happen moments I've ever really encountered in a film. And yeah, and I appreciate what they were trying to kind of do, and I appreciate they do acknowledge the original, no doubt. You know, something to kind of, you know, it's nothing to kind of take to kind of badly, but I think just the execution here, yes, as I'm saying, at times a big no for me, and the whole kind of the way it kind of was a bit anticlimactic as well with Rose the Hat. But yes, I think you know, what was really to praise is the kind of Danny at times in the film. I love the kind of actually the humanity as well, the clinic and the whole kind of alcohol related stuff there. That was really, really good. I think there's some flat moments at first, but you know, the drama of the film, the kind of the way it's kind of the humanity of this at times is very impressive. You know, Ewan McGregor does a really good job at times, mostly solid, and other characters I really enjoyed that kind of interacted with him, that took him in, basically. That's the stuff that I really, really liked. And Abra, great character, you know, and also the cult in itself, you know, the way it's portrayed is very, very compelling, mostly, you know, and just very enjoyable in the fantasy elements and the kind of disturbing nature at times a bit too far, no doubt, but I think Rose is a very, very just really iconic character, really, in modern horror, actually, and I think I really like, you know, the costumes and everything. Rebecca Ferguson just really pulling it off so well as well. The performance here, probably the best in the film actually, and just really, really good here, and just, you know, the performances really from quite a few of the characters just definitely to praise, and I think the use of music, you know, in the film, you know, I really enjoyed the kind of the way they brought back the music, you know, from the original was definitely good. Home, particularly that track there, and you know, and stuff like that. It's really, really well brought in, and definitely provided the atmosphere there, and you know, the visual references, you know, at times in the actual scenes and stuff, they're kind of very flawed, I feel, but the actual references within the score are definitely really to praise here, and I just enjoyed the overall kind of callbacks, yes, the atmosphere through the music, and yeah, just the location in this film, the use of location is definitely to praise, I feel, and aside from maybe the Overlook Hotel and stuff and what they do with it, you know, just just the overall setting throughout most of the film, and kind of the eerie feeling it has, but also I think warm feeling in the way it's portrayed. It's definitely to praise. I really enjoyed a lot of the narrative with Danny, actually, when he goes to these meetings, and he's trying to basically move on from the past, from his troubles particularly, and just come to terms with things, and just basically heal in many regards. I think that was definitely to praise. I think that's the kind of route they were going for in that I did respond to. I think also the cult in itself, but just the way that they kind of play with the original, and at times the one-sided nature of a few things, and I think there's definitely some flat moments throughout. This is a problematic film. The first 20 minutes, as I've said, but really the overall structure generally is just very strange. It's also very disjointed at times. It's a film that kind of it just the editing is, I think, quite flawed at times, and just the way that it's very very kind of strange in the way it's structured and the way it moves. It's a very peculiar film at times, I feel. It's got its flat moments. There's times that I was bored at, I think, actually, and the whole kind of the scenes at first with Danny, just very very much in the first 30 minutes, I was struggling with a bit. I must say, I kind of felt it was flat at times, and overall, I think it's a good film, but it does have I think it is definitely has more potential than this. In its kind of in what is given. I think just in its basic form, in the story and stuff, and the way that they could have done different things, and I think really to kind of follow on from the original with certain things, and kind of especially in the end of the film, the final act, to show the Overlook Hotel. I think that's when it really there's certainly very risky, and it could have been done well. It could have been done really really well, but for me, to show, for example, Jack Torrance, and to show certain characters without, I think, maybe thinking it through properly, that's when it kind of goes off, and it just loses a lot, really, the atmosphere and everything like this, and just just the subtlety, and what they're kind of doing with that. I think it would have been great to just I would really have been fine never seeing any of the characters from the original, and just maybe using the Overlook Hotel. That's fine, but to see, as I said, to see Jack Torrance, and just certain characters from the first, done in this way, I think is a big no for me. I didn't like that, and I think it's just kind of, it just made me kind of irritated, frustrated with that. So overall, of course, I think this is a film that I enjoyed. It's not a film that I loved really by any means. I really liked it at times. Other times, there's a couple of instances where, as I've explained, I didn't really like at all. There's certainly some big no's in this film, personally for me, and mainly when it's kind of, relating back to The Shining. I think it could have been a lot better if it had done that, and certainly things, there's never would I thought they would have shown Jack Torrance and particular scenes reshot, but that's something that it is a flaw, but to dwell on that, I think this is a good film. It's got some impressive moments. Rebecca Ferguson, Kyliegh, Curran, Ewan McGregor, all great performances at times, especially Rebecca Ferguson. She really really is so good in this film, and I think yes, the villain at times, and the kind of cult is a little bit one-sided, but at the same time, it's compelling. It's very, I loved the kind of the fantasy elements at times, and the whole kind of, the way it was kind of building that up. Maybe it didn't go follow through in the way it ended, but I think for what's there, it is compelling, and just I think yes, the first 20 minutes or so is rushed, and definitely kind of flat at times as well. It takes a while to really pick up, but once it does, I think what's going on with Danny, while definitely not completely believable for me, to the truth of the character, I think what is offered in itself is human. It's quite complex. It's quite moving at times, and just warm as well. What's kind of cold in the film, and ironically, yes, This is at times cold. This is the one that, yes, the stuff with certain deaths in the film, really did not go down well. But the cult in itself, the true knot, kind of group here, I think is definitely compelling. It's a very, very interesting, very disturbing, and kind of just enjoyable mostly. And the different members within the group, especially Rose of the Hat, really, really good character. One-sided, yes. There's no denying that. I think some of it is one-sided with the villains, but I think in terms of just a one-sided villain, especially Rose the Hat, is great. Even though there's not much complexities, for what she's trying to do here, what they're trying to bring to the screen, and Rebecca Ferguson, performance is definitely, so compelling at times, just so enjoyable, and yes, I think Ewan McGregor, as I've said, very impressive at times. Whether or not it's really true to the character of Danny, I don't think it is personally, really, but. If they're going in the route of, he's struggling with alcohol and stuff and trying to forget the past, it is effective in this film. Flawed but effective, and I think the use of location, the use of music in the film, the callbacks of the music, very much to praise, and just overall as a film, as a horror film, it's definitely good. I think it's compelling. It definitely, invested me at times. It kind of it was very atmospheric at times. We'll wrap up. I think I'd give it a 74%. Very much a good film, and not further than that. I think it's not a bad film. What I didn't like about the film, can be kind of it doesn't outweigh, of course. I feel the good aspects of the film and the very, very impressive aspects, especially the acting and certain kind of groups, of course. The film that, of course. The True Knot, group here, the cult. I really liked how it kind of played on kind of vampirism. It's very, very interesting what they've done with this, and it's just the visuals throughout. The way the film's shot. I maybe think perhaps it could have been better, but solid. Some very nice shots at times, actually, very atmospheric. Overall, a solid piece of cinema here in terms of the visuals, and there's some strange moments, but kind of interesting moments visually, involving Rose the Hat, actually, and stuff. That was strange, but yeah, I kind of enjoyed that, and it's just I think a warm feeling, kind of banding together, especially, is what I really enjoyed with Abra and Danny later on in the film, and the whole kind of the way that kind of the whole kind of redemption, you could say, and the kind of moving forward of Danny, I really, really liked at times, and certain characters there I think was very human. I really liked certain aspects of that. So yeah, I did really like quite a few moments of the film and certain aspects, and I enjoyed the film overall. If you're asking whether it's I guess actually you don't really need to ask that if it compares to the original, but for me, obviously not, and obviously I do think. In itself, there's didn't quite reach the potential. This one, Doctor Sleep, I think, and there's certain things I think should have been in the film, really, just for my liking. But they could be, of course, things that other people respond to very positively to. Whether or not you kind of there's certainly divisive what they do with the kind of the original, but yeah, I think it's fine. Of course, different views on the film, for different takes. For me personally, I just felt it was too heavy-handed. It was too, it lost the sense of atmosphere and sense of wonder that they could have done. Not diminishing the original, just not I think following through that in the best of ways, and just what they've done showing Jack Torrance perhaps at all really was a big no for me. I just think it was just a really not a decision that I really connected to, let's just say that, really appreciated, but and that final act is a mixture of really, unfortunately, kind of problematic fan service, I feel, but with some compelling moments, as I say, the kind of showdown between Rose and Danny. I liked how it kind of it left into that for her to fully realise certain feelings, and Rose the Hat, and the way the tension there perhaps was definitely good, and Abra and Danny together, there was really, really good. I really enjoyed that, and just overall in the film, that kind of aspect, and how different people have got different powers as well. The the whole kind of fantasy elements, as I say, is mostly very, very enjoyable for me, you know, as a fantasy fan. And I think yes, I definitely think it's a good film. 74. It's a decent score from me. Nothing special, I don't feel, but yeah, it just it definitely could have been better in my view. But a good film that I enjoyed. Certainly frustrating at times, and just unnecessary at times. Certain things they've done, and just a big no at times with what they've done with the original in terms of showing that in this film in particular ways. And but the use of music in that aspect, in that sense, was good. Really enjoyed that. Just the overall, the way they reshot scenes, it was just, yeah. We'll move on from that. A good film, and I would certainly recommend it. You know, it's going to be divisive. If you love the original, you know, this could be a film you don't like, but it could be a film you kind of enjoy or love. Who knows? You know, it's certainly a film that it's divisive. Some people have responded to it really well. I think it's good. A positive response from me, but I can see a lot of people just saying they don't like it at all, which is absolutely fine. As always, this channel is you know, a celebration of cinema in general, and that welcomes any opinion. As long as it's respectful, then it's great to discuss why you didn't like the film, why you liked it, why you love the film, any type of film, as we know. Always great to discuss a variety of comments. So yeah, tell me your thoughts. Of course, it'd be great to hear your thoughts on this film, and just talking about you know, the story and what they've done with this. It's a very interesting film. You know, very interesting ideas, of course, and what they're kind of, to see Danny, you know, many years later, is just in itself, you know, it's a thing that you kind of, I guess it would yeah, it'd be interesting to some. I could have done without it, but I did enjoy this film. I'm certainly going to remind, you know, that I do think it's a good film. But yes, as always, tell me your thoughts in the comments. You know, what did you think of this film, and what do you think of the Shining, the original, and stuff like this. And yes, as always, thanks for watching my review.